Good morning. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Today on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with Davis Maddock. Hope you're having a great start to your Saturday. Davis and I going to discuss a lot of different topics here on the show. Of course, we got fantasy baseball off and running here. We've got some great basketball happening in the NBA. And of course, the Final Four is coming up later today, 6:09 Eastern, first game there. And Davis, plenty to get to here with baseball, man. It's been an interesting start. I know I wasn't here with you last week. And here where I am in terms of fantasy, things are going okay. Some of the picks that I made are seemingly working out. Some little flyers here that I took seem to be off in the right direction. Unfortunately, the major league team in my area is not off to a great start. So I guess that's given me some more time to look around the league with waiver wire coming up this weekend. Some big injuries in baseball, not surprising. And I guess that's probably the place to start here with the news coming out of Atlanta. First round pick, Davis, in every fantasy league, the player that we talked about in the draft season as a tier by himself, not a tear, T-E-A-R, but a tier, T-I-E-R. And we're hoping, Davis, that we don't hear the T-E-A-R later today. My gosh, Spencer Strider, this is the biggest story of the early fantasy season, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I actually would imagine this probably will be the defining story of the fantasy baseball season when I'm looking back on the 2024 fantasy baseball season. I guess, one, it will be, does Ohtani ever face any suspension or not? Does anything come from that as another first-round pick? And what ends up happening with Spencer Strider? Craig, you've been around baseball for a long time. You know as well as I do, young pitcher, throws hard, heavy strikeouts, goes to have the MRI. What's the next thing? What's the next story? What is the, well, there, I guess the next story will be, he's going to rest. We're going to give him, we're going to give him an injection. We're going to give him 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and we're going to see how he feels. Then he is going to go for a follow-up. Then he goes to, I guess it used to be Dr. James Andrews. Is that out of date now? It's not him who does all the UCLs.
There's three different doctors, generally speaking. James Andrews still very heavily involved, Meister in Dallas, and El Atrash in California. I mean, there's others too, I guess, but like those are the three that you hear the most. Yeah.
So, look, I mean, does not really take a rocket scientist to say, we just went through this with Garrett Cole, right? We went to Garrett Cole, a little bit of discomfort. He's going to go. He's going to rest 2 months. Guess what? The next update we hear on Garrett Cole, I'm going to assume in 3 weeks from now, it's going to be that Garrett Cole is going to get the surgery. Spencer Strider probably. If I had to bet, Craig, I would set it at minus 180 that Garrett Cole ends up having to have some sort of surgery on this discomfort in his elbow. It's a huge bummer. It's not what you want. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping he wakes up this morning feeling like $1 million and that his arm is as good as new. That's just not the most likely thing.
Yeah, and again, with Strider, we don't know. We're still in the preliminary stages of that. The other thing with these sort of injuries, and I'll touch on it with Yuri Perez, and this is how, we can sort of go through it here, is the determination as to when to have it, if you have to have it. And so that's the next step here, Davis. So Yuri Perez is going to miss all of this year. And since he's had Tommy, now again, he could have had this a week or two ago, but this was a really smart move where, the Marlins just basically said, and Yuri Perez, basically just said, hey, look, if I don't do this now, I'm looking at coming back midway through the year last year. And Davis, that's the case with Cole. And we don't have no idea on Strider yet, so let's not even go there and speculate. But the timing of this is really crucial because what we're starting to see, you see it in football, we're starting to see it in baseball as well. Guys are coming back faster from this injury. So instead of it being a 12 to 14 month, it's generally a 12. So Yuri Perez is a devastating injury. For those in keeper leagues, you keep them. In the redraft, you just throw them back. 12 months, Davis, means he could come back in May, miss a month, throw his 100 innings, pick up more service time, and pitch as well. And I think that's where the key decisions are coming in. Now, with Cole, who's a veteran, I'm guessing he's probably thinking, you know what, if I do this surgery, I'm going to miss most of next year too. I'm an older guy. The rehab is going to be longer. So whether I have it in May or I have it in April makes no difference. For a guy like Yuri Perez, he wants to come back immediately next year, so it does make sense. As far as Verlander, he just had the surgery a couple of years ago. He's going to make a rehab start in AAA. Ronel Blanco, another Astros player, another no-hitter. They just manufacture players left and right. Davis, it's sort of incredible the way that they operate. They just find these new players every single year. Urquidy is not pitching for them. Garcia, remember him last year? With the crazy hair and the wino, he's out. He's not pitching this year either. So, I guess we just got to keep tipping our cap to the Astros. They lose Springer and they lose, all these different players, and it doesn't even matter. They just keep finding. I mean, Teoscar Hernandez was on the Houston Astros. They'll just always replace guys, and I think that's what you always have to look at in fantasy. If you see a player that's not being drafted high on Houston or a minor league player, you just have to know that they're going to develop that guy and get him to the big leagues.
I mean, 100%, 100% accurate. They are. I actually think it definitely gets a little bit overlooked because of all the cheating stuff, like with the the trash cans and the memes and everything. But like, it is inarguable that even outside of that, the Houston Astros are still one of the model organizations in baseball. That if you look at the body of work, okay, yeah, absolutely, they cheated. The players cheated. The front office cheated. Everyone was complicit in the cheating. But you can still cheat at baseball and not win, right? I mean, there have been, I am sure we could go through the history of cheating teams in any sport, and they have not been near as successful there. In fact, I would say, if I had to think about all the pitching staffs, I would probably put the Rays front office and pitching coaches as the number one in baseball in terms of bringing a guy in, teaching him X, Y, or Z, or having him remove X, Y, or Z from his arsenal and change it to another thing. The Rays would definitely be number one. The Astros would probably be number two for me in terms of their ability to just unearth talent in terms of starting pitching. And the Blanco thing, I mean, Craig, is pretty interesting. He was their, quote unquote, fifth starter with Justin Verlander. He's kind of the placeholder waiting for Verlander to come back. They are going to have to excise someone from this rotation when Verlander is back and fully healthy. Is it JP France? Is it Hunter Brown? It's probably JP France, or do they just go full and say, you know what, Ronel Blanco, thank you for your service. Thank you for the no-hitter. We're sticking to the plan. You're going back to the bullpen. Kind of wild.
Yeah, no, it is. And a lot of injuries for them too. Urquidy is a key one, obviously, for them. I mean, he's not the best pitcher on the Astros staff, but very, very consistent. Let's get to the good real quick before we get to the waiver wire, Davis. I mean, Mookie Betts. I mean, what is left to say about this guy? I mean, look, Hernandez is off to a great start too, Teoscar Hernandez. But Mookie Betts is like out of this world again, and we're only like 10 days into the season.
I mean, yeah, Mookie Betts is he could have been a Boston Red Sox, and they decided that he wasn't worth the money, and can't feel very good if you're from the greater Massachusetts area to watch how good he is this season.
Yeah, number one overall in fantasy scoring right now. We'll hit the waiver wire next on Fantasy Sports Today. Don't go away.
Great. NC State, the Cinderella story continues.
Creates a double team and then gets an assist. 3 assists already. Everything is going through the big man.
Maybe one of the most dominant runs now with double-digit wins at 2 straight NCAA tournaments we have seen in quite some time in the Big Ten.
Zach Edey does throw elbows. Zach Edey does duck in with his shoulder. Zach Edey does initiate a lot of contact.
Bama runs a style that can challenge them and upset them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Jrue Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford father time to catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics Twitter. all of my might.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times, and Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They are the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports today on SportsGrid. April numbers are very difficult to decipher in fantasy baseball. Now, for some, you know who they're going to be, and there's not big surprises. For others, there's some surprises, and there's players that are sitting out there on the waiver wire to pick up. And specifically, Davis, the area to attack, at least in the early part of the season, has got to be the pitchers, because you're going to see so many guys go down over the course of the year. Now, I think what people forget, Davis, is that the managers in Major League Baseball with players, position players, is over the first week or two, you look at lineups, you see people complaining all the time. Why is this guy playing? Why is that guy playing? Managers, generally speaking, if it's not the Dodgers or the Yankees, they like to get everybody in to play a little bit, just to kind of get their feet wet. They don't like these guys sitting on the bench. Then they morph into off-the-bench players, May, June, July, etc. But initially, that's why the playing time looks a little bit screwy at the start of the year. But if you see a pitcher, Davis, come out and have a good start and a second good start, or maybe get a save opportunity, it's definitely the direction that you want to go on the waiver wire this week. Even if you're not playing the guy and you're just streaming him, it's worth a bit or two just to throw it on the bench just to see what happens.
Well, it definitely is. And, this is just true in all sports when it comes to the waiver wire. But $1 spent, the first run of waivers, the second run of waivers, the third run of waivers, that dollar you spend has exponential value to your lineup, because if that $1, $10, $50, whatever spent on the first waiver wire run is right, if you pick up one of these guys we're about to talk about and they end up being a huge win, that is huge value for your team all season long, right? There's a real difference between, winning Garrett Crochet in week 2 and getting 28 starts out of him, or winning, some Royals pitcher who gets called up on the 16th waiver wire run that you get to start for, 3 months or whatever. Like there's a big difference between those two options.
Yeah, and this is tough because, again, Crochet's we'll start there. That's our first player we're going to discuss. He's a former prospect who, certainly getting the opportunity. And look, they gave him Davis, the opening day start for the White Sox. People are like, what are they doing here? This doesn't make sense. Look, he's made 2 starts. He's delivered thus far we know that this is not going to keep up, but what's really impressive with him is the fact that he's not walking anyone, and you can live in the big leagues a long time not walking. Now, you're playing in a league where you're looking for wins. The White Sox are going to be one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. That's unequivocal at this point. But good start for him. He's owned in probably about 50% of leagues. That's going to be a big jump, I would say, going into next week. I think people probably left him, Davis, last weekend after his first start, but I don't think that's going to happen this weekend.
No, it's not. So this is a guy with 86 career Major League Baseball innings, including 13 this season. His max in a season was back in 2021. He got the 54 innings pitched as a reliever. You know, I like this thing that the White Sox do where they're kind of open to letting guys figure out their role in the major leagues. I mean, they're doing it with Kopech now, moving him back to the bullpen, which is probably kind of always what Kopech should have been, actually, like if you think about it. But Crochet started out in the bullpen. He is another like really high velocity, really high walk rate guy, career 11% walk rate over those 86 innings. He's not issued any walks right now, and he struck out a bunch of guys. Craig, this is the type of guy I think you should be pretty aggressive bidding on, because if he did find the secret sauce, whatever that secret sauce might be, added a pitch, changed his grip, learned something about, locating the strikes, whatever it is, right? I mean, I far be it for me to say that I am a pitching guru or anything like that, but Crochet has that base element, which is the stuff, right? I mean, he just is like a nasty starting pitcher. He throws the ball very hard, and he is able to generate swinging strikes, which is like the hardest thing to teach a starting pitcher to do. The other stuff can be added on. I would be pretty aggressive bidding on him, I think.
All right, now let's move on to the Dodgers, where anybody is worth a pickup. My gosh, Davis, this kid Bobby Miller thus far. I mean, they haven't even gotten Kershaw on the mound. They haven't even gotten Walker Buehler on the mound. And it's like, I mean, you talk about the pitching development. That's another team. I mean, Dustin May, where's he? It doesn't matter. How about this guy, Gavin Stone? He's owned in less than 50% of leagues. Remember, he's getting an opportunity. They traded Pepio to Tampa Bay in the offseason in the Glasnow deal. So Stone gets a chance here to pitch. My temptation is to think of potentially picking a guy like this up and just stashing and waiting because of the high strikeout numbers. But a guy like this, Davis, is a 5 and dive. I mean, this is kind of the way that the Dodgers operate with these young starting pitchers. You get your 4 innings, maybe even 4 innings, 5 innings and done. And then you run the risk a little bit of having a blow up, which is what happened to Miller the other day. Looked great in the first inning and then got pounded a little bit. But what do you make of this guy? Anything peripherally that you like?
I mean, he was brutal last season. Gavin Stone was. I mean, he only appeared in 8 games. He was awful though. I mean, 6.5 fielding independent pitching. He walked a bunch of guys. He was not able to generate any strikeouts. And in terms of like, the Dodgers do, they just unearth these guys. They find them from everywhere. I would not say he is super high on the Dodgers hierarchy of pitching prospects that they've had around. He was a 5th round pick. He was a college pitcher, which is a little bit different than the normal thing. It took him until 2023 to get called up as a 24-year-old. Obviously he was very good in the minor leagues. Like, that's just the way it works. If you're not good in the minor leagues, you're not getting called up. Just for example, though, I think that it's enough of a carousel there with that 5th starter for the Dodgers that I would be pretty conservative bidding on him. I would save some of that money for Garrett Crochet probably.
All right. Now, the Cincinnati Reds signed Frankie Montas in the offseason. Remember, Montas has had a ton of injuries. The Yankees got him, and he didn't pitch at all with them. So far, so good. 11 innings, 0.77 ERA, 3 walks, 9 strikeouts. I don't know that you want a guy on the Reds, to be honest, but, I mean, the early results are pretty good here, Davis. I suppose you probably should just pick him up just to see and get those matchups in when you can, but I would be a little careful on this one going crazy.
Frankie Montas is your ultimate, you pick him up and you start him when there's a good 2-week run. You don't, one of the issues is you don't love to use guys at Great American Ballpark. It is, people do kind of forget this. It's actually the most homer-friendly ballpark in all of baseball. even more so than Coors, even more so than Yankee Stadium. I don't know what it is about the dimensions or the environment that makes it that way. And that's actually been something that Montas has struggled with in his careers, is the home runs. So again, I mean, yeah, sure, like it's fine. I don't go crazy, but like he's a fine, spend 1% of your fab budget, get him for a good 2-star week, whatever. It's fine.
Now the best comment of the week was made by Tigers manager AJ Hinch, Davis. I don't know if you caught this, but Foley, their closer, was brought into the early part of the game. They used Alex Lang in the end, and in the post game, Davis, Hinch said that first and foremost, I want to apologize to all the fantasy owners out there that I used my closer in the early part of the game. So AJ Hinch gets it, man. I've always interviewed him before. He always gets that part of it. So who knows what's going on with the Tigers' closing situation? What do you make of Arizona's closing situation with Sewald hurt? I guess you got to kind of wait for him. Kevin Ginkel, Davis, in a lot of these drafts was taken as like the closer of the Diamondbacks. Whew, I'm not sure if that was wasted money. I mean, he's okay, but I don't know, man. I could see them going a lot of different directions here.
I mean, I think they are likely to go a bunch of different directions because they have guys up and down who are all right. Like Scott McHugh has been an option. Brandon Pfaadt is not starting for them right now, but is on they just have so many different ways to go. And if you have a guy on the roster who is the guy and you don't impress, you're not Wally Pippin anyone if you're going over. Like if he messes up the next one, it's over. Forget Kevin Ginkel exists, man. He is out of there. He's gone.
All right, we'll come up next, and we'll talk about some hitters in fantasy to grab this week off the waiver wire if they're still available in your fantasy league. Craig Mish, Davis Maddock. This is Fantasy Sports Today. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away.
Great. NC State, the Cinderella story continues.
Creates a double team and then gets an assist. 3 assists already. Everything's going through the big man.
Maybe one of the most dominant runs now with double-digit wins and 2 straight NCAA tournaments we have seen in quite some time in the Big Ten.
Zach Edey does throw elbows. Zach Edey does duck in with his shoulder. Zach Edey does initiate a lot of contact.
Bama runs a style that can challenge them and upset them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Drew Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford father time to catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics with all of my might.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. And Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They are the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, back to the waiver wire we go. Let's take a look at some hitters in fantasy baseball that are potentially on the waiver wire for you as we dive in and we take a look at the San Diego Padres. Davis, they've let Jackson Merrill open up with the team. He's probably got to perform, I would say, to stick. So far, okay, striking out a little bit too much here. Under 30% ownership, 250, 1 home run, 2 runs driven in. And look, I mean, I guess in the deeper leagues, you got to take a shot here. My fear is always with somebody like this, Davis, is that when they're sort of like toying with the idea of somebody making the opening day roster, it really does not guarantee that you stay the whole season in the big leagues for a number of reasons. Number one, if you don't perform, you go down. And number two, if it's even debatable, the teams look at it and go, all right, this guy's not going to win Rookie of the Year. We're not going to get a comp pick for this guy because now that's the draw for keeping guys in the big leagues is you get a extra draft pick. But if they're not going to get that with the guy, then all of a sudden you hate to hear it, but it's like service time. Oh, let's send the guy down, work on some things. So Merrill's got to perform. I would say probably. What would you say? 2 months to perform well. So far, okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, they don't have anyone on the bench right now who is just like so, hitting so well, established so highly that they absolutely have to get rid of him. Jose Azocar, like whatever, Oscar Mercado is on the 40-man roster. Like there are competent major league players that they could stuff in there. But again, no one who and Merrill has been not great. 323 OBP, striking out 22% of the time, walking almost 10% of the time. Only the 1 home run. We'll see what ends up happening there. I actually probably would. I think I'd bet on him in this spot. I think I would say this is a young guy, pretty high in all of the prospect stuff, pretty well regarded. That ultimately, I think he'll figure it out. And also, like the Padres lineup is not nearly as intimidating as it has been in years past. Right now, he's batting 9th mostly. I mean, I could definitely see him batting 6th after like a real good week, and that would change the proposition of him for fantasy as well.
All right, now let's move on to the outfield, and Mitch Haniger is back again in Seattle. Already has a home run, has driven in 4 runs for them. He's really lined up for playing time. And look, Davis, the only thing with him is that if you do decide, let's say, in the AL leagues he's owned, and 14-teamers he's probably owned, but in one of these short mixed leagues, you're playing someone head-to-head, you put him in your lineup, you just got to hope he stays healthy. I mean, that's really been the key for him through the years.
It's really been the key. I mean, if you look at his per plate appearance stuff, he has always been good. In fact, the only season in his career he's ever been below league average in OPS plus was last year for the Giants. He was only able to get 229 plate appearances. From a skills rate, I mean, he did strike out more last season and walk a little bit less. So there definitely is a chance that he is not the same guy that he has been. And you don't want to catch the falling knife there with a 33-year-old outfielder, right? Like it's really not ideal. So I definitely would not go crazy on him. Like, for example, I would rather make a bet on Jackson Merrill actually than Mitch Haniger because I think there's way more upside there. You know exactly what you're getting with Haniger. He used to earlier in his career maybe give you 5, 6, 7, 8 stolen bases. That's not happening anymore. It is I think the only way he can pay off for you is a duplication of his 2021 season where he hit 39 home runs with a 253 batting average. And he just might not be that guy anymore, really, at 33 years old.
Yeah, no, it's possible. Again, once you hit that age and you're still trying to play the outfield, that's the dynamic. And health is going to be key with him. Probably needs to play some DH too, but Seattle doesn't really have a spot there. Right. So, I mean, you draft Sean Murphy Davis last week, and then opening day starts, and you're like, I got my catcher for the season, and then boom, like 2 days in, he's got an oblique. That's a really unfortunate injury for him, and those things linger, man. So this is not going to be a 2-week thing or 3-week thing, probably a month or more. Braves did the smart thing, Davis. Travis d'Arnaud could probably catch, what would you guess, on like 10 teams in the league, 15 teams in the league, and now he's back with the Braves starting. I mean, he hasn't done much, but catching is impossible to find. So he shouldn't be, I don't think, on any waiver wire right now.
Yeah, no, he definitely should not be on any waiver wire right now. Like Travis d'Arnaud, I mean, this is a long time ago But Travis d'Arnaud was used to be considered one of the best catching prospects, pretty much in all of baseball. He was, probably largely a disappointment for the Mets in the end, but actually he's been pretty awesome in his tenure with the Braves. He signed with them in 2020. The last 2 years, 18 and 11 home runs, passable batting average. Doesn't strike out too much, does take walks. And these 2 catcher leagues, I mean, Craig, you know how insane it is that 2 catcher leagues still exist. But in a 2 catcher league, can you ask for anything better off the waiver wire than d'Arnaud playing 4 times a week? I really don't think you can.
No, great ad there. Now, over to the Blue Jays here, who are in a position to win this year. They gave Kevin Biggio an extended shot last year, Davis. He made the most of it. Looked like he really turned the corner. So I'm not going to panic here after a handful of games. 1 home run, 6 strikeouts. In most 12-team leagues, I still don't think people are going to pick him up this week because they're not going to believe what they saw at the end of last year was legit. But look, this is a player probably that has to perform. They've shown patience with him in the past. Also could be an upgradable position, I would think, for the Blue Jays if he does not perform. But we'll give him another few weeks.
I probably would not be bidding very much on Kevin Biggio. I think the best case scenario for him for the Blue Jays is being a league average hitter with sort of above average defensive utility. You can play him at all these middle infield spots, second, third, either of the outfield spots like that. That is their value to them. The issue with his value to us is that he gets pinch hit for, right? With quite a big regularity. Very rarely does he stay in for the entire game, and he doesn't offer us anything in terms of the counting stats. I mean, he's not had double-digit home runs or stolen bases since that magical 2019 season. So just really not his deal, I guess.
Finally, let's go to the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I guess I was sort of surprised, Davis, to see Jared Triolo playing. I saw them play. The Pirates played the Marlins 4 days in a row. I guess I was sort of surprised that he was the everyday guy. They really didn't play anybody else at second base. So, look, not a bad start for a player that was undrafted in every fantasy league. He's barely owned, NL only. I guess this is somebody that you want. Mixed leagues, I don't know. I guess, Davis, we have to see how the Pirates play because this is a player I think they'd probably rather have in the super utility playing all over the place as opposed to playing every day at second base.
They would. Now, I mean, look, super utility guys can be really valuable for fantasy if they're generating those plate appearances. Go back to, we were just talking about Kevin Biggio, who is, more or less a super utility player for the Blue Jays. But ideally, you want for fantasy a super utility guy to hit for a good batting average and then be your stolen base guy. I mean, very rarely are you going to get super utility guys, just almost by definition, are not going to be good power hitters, because if they were good power hitters, they'd just be a corner outfielder who would play every day. It's just kind of how it works. But Triolo is not, I guess, he's not a huge stolen base guy either. He did have a couple years in the minor leagues where I think he probably just wanted to flash it. In 2021, he stole 25 bases. In 2022, in Double-A, he stole 24. But since then, in 2023, 2024 combined, he has only stolen 17 bases overall. I don't know, and is this the sort of lineup that is going to provide enough runs, RBIs? Can the guy, I guess, you know what, if he can hit 300 or if he can hit 290, he probably helps your batting average stuff enough as a utility guy. These are the type of guys who would just never feature on my fantasy team, honestly. Just the kind of, okay, he's going to play 4 or 5 days a week. Maybe you get a stolen base. You're going to get 8 home runs over the course of the year. It's just I don't know. What's the point? I just don't. I probably would not bid very much on him, if any, at all.
Are you buying the Pirates more this year than last year, Davis? They got off to that great start in April last year. I think we were all kind of this isn't going to last. But, I mean, I got to tell you, they got Skenes coming soon. They got a great bullpen. I mean, I don't know. I mean, do you think they could last into June or July this year, staying in it?
So I'm definitely buying it a little bit more. I mean, one, O'Neal Cruz is healthy instead of not not playing at all, right? So he profiles as their best hitter. They do have Skenes coming, which means that either Domingo Germán or Marco Gonzalez, whichever one, or Martin, whoever is the worst out of those three guys, excise them, get them out of there. They also they're just going with Henry Davis every single day as their catcher. I like that. And I mean, Craig, this division, I mean, really outside of the Brewers is pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So like you could win 82, 83 games there, and like if the Brewers just have bad pitching luck, they get rid of Burns, like whatever, there's upside there. And I don't know, I would love this for our buddy Scott Farrell if they would go on a run, trade for a good starting pitcher, replace look, God love Andrew McCutchen, but maybe don't have like a 39-year-old guy DHing for you every single day. Like figure that out, and they could be a serious baseball team, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, Cubs definitely, seem to be a little bit better than last year. Brewers maybe worse. Cardinals, I don't know where they're at. Maybe the same. I'm not even sure. Maybe the Brewers, this is it. Maybe they could make a run. All right, coming up next, the best and worst in fantasy baseball as we close out with the first week. We'll be back with more fantasy sports today in just a couple of minutes. And stick with us throughout the day here because we got plenty of Final Four preview, betting around the rim coming up next.
NC State, the Cinderella story continues.
Creates a double team and then gets an assist. 3 assists already. Everything is going through the big man.
Maybe one of the most dominant runs now with double-digit wins and 2 straight NCAA tournaments we have seen in quite some time in the Big Ten.
Zach Edey does throw elbows. Zach Edey does duck in with his shoulder. Zach Edey does initiate a lot of contact.
Bama runs a style that can challenge them and upset them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Drew Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford father time to catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics with all of my might.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. And Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They are the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Farrell coast to coast. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Farrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports today on Sports Grid. I'm Craig Mish along with Davis Maddock. It's time now to take a look at the first week of fantasy baseball officially in the books. Some teams have played more than others because of rain delays. Davis, I don't know if you saw this yesterday, but in Pittsburgh, they were playing in the snow in April, so you don't generally see snow games, but that's kind of been the deal in April. You know, they should be playing all in domes if they can in the first week. There's just not enough of them. But that being said, as we talked about at the top of the show, the best player thus far in fantasy, and he's about to get this shortstop qualification for 10 games in. If it's 1 game in, you get it. 10 games is coming up, is Mookie Betts, who already has second base eligibility, outfield eligibility, and he has 3 home runs on the season. He's already stolen a base as well. He is the top scoring fantasy player through week 1. We know it's not going to continue like this the entire year. But if there was ever a player that's the odds-on favorite to win the MVP, Betts is that guy right now.
Well, look, he definitely is the odds-on favorite, in part because I don't know how many voters are going to, in the end, want to vote for his teammate, Mr. Ohtani, based on some of the nebulous stuff going on there. And it is sort of interesting that, the Dodgers have been so awesome to start the year that the Braves are not as nearly as big a part of the conversation. I mean, Betts is already now moved over on FanDuel Sportsbook. He's already moved to the heavy favorite to win National League MVP after a week of games. He is already plus 350 to start the year. Acuna Jr. was right around plus 400 on the FanDuel Sportsbook, so he's fallen back a little bit. Betts has moved way up. I find that pretty fascinating. I mean, in my vast experiences in betting these markets, it's probably a bad idea to chase that, and you'd be better served, going with the overreaction the other way. Guys who have moved down after a week of the season, but Betts, I mean, Craig, look, he probably is going to be the story of the fantasy baseball season at this point, because you're getting those middle infield spots filled. You can move him to the outfield if you need to. I mean, at this point, come on, let's just have him play. Let's just have him start 10 games at catcher. Wouldn't you love to see Mookie Betts with all the catcher gear on, and then he goes and subs out and changes spots and goes and plays in the outfield there? Having these kind of stats from a utility style roster perspective is, I mean, it's the most valuable thing in fantasy baseball, really.
Yeah, incredible start for Mookie Betts. Also incredible start, maybe the best pitching start thus far through 2 starts for Shane Bieber of the Cleveland Guardians. He's gone 12 innings, 20 strikeouts, 1 walk. Cleveland's got that pitching factory going. Look, Bieber has been the best pitcher in the American League before, and could be again very easily this season, Davis. I guess the question is for Cleveland, are they going to keep him? Are they going to hang around with him for the entire year? I mean, I hope so. I mean, the environment for him is always really good. Great start for him, owned in every league, so not much really to talk about here. I guess there'll just be more conversation this summer. If the Guardians are not in it, his name will be brought up like it has been this offseason.
Definitely. So, I mean, yeah, we are talking about a Cy Young Award winner in 2020. We're talking about a guy who got Cy Young votes in 2019 and in 2022. He was a little bit worse last season in his age 28 season. His walks went up a little bit. His strikeouts went down. I guess that is pretty concerning. Was that in his age 28 season? I mean, he didn't. He only pitched in 21 games. So there are grains of sand to be integrated through that data. I actually really wouldn't be that worried about Bieber being traded, because they've had this opportunity to do it with him. I mean, Craig, a billion times. How many opportunities have they had to trade Shane Bieber and all these guys? I mean, this is not a team that casts any aspersions about spending a lot of money or being like, oh, we're going all in. We're going to be the best team in the American League. The Guardians absolutely know who they are. And look, I mean, if he gets traded, guy could go to the Houston Astros. Guy could go. I mean, you really wouldn't want him to go to the Yankees or to the Orioles. Those would be that would be a much worse hitting environment for him. Although this is the guy who I was begging the Reds to trade for last year. Remember, the Reds were so exciting. They're going to win the division. They're so young. Joey Votto, the send off, all that stuff. I was like, please trade for Bieber or one of these Guardians guys. That would actually be a disaster if he went to the Reds, because that is not a pitcher friendly ballpark.
All right, let's go to the San Francisco Giants. A lot of pressure on the Giants to win and win right now. Michael Conforto, the sort of forgotten player in the offseason. The Giants signed Jung-Hoo Lee. They signed Jorge Soler. And everyone's like, all right, well, they signed Conforto. They'll just have to figure out a way to get rid of him or not play him. And look what he's done. Really good start, Davis, to his season. Playing for a contract again. He got a 2-year deal with San Francisco. Not the best hitting environment ever, but you got to tip your cap because Conforto is definitely making the most of his chance. And also remember, maybe after missing a full year, maybe just wasn't 100% healthy last year. He looks it right now.
Yeah, so I've been a big Conforto guy ever since he was a 22-year-old on the New York Mets. He was awesome in that opening stint. He was not very good the next year, and then ripped off a bunch of seasons for the Mets where he was one of the best hitters in the National League. 27, 28, 33 home runs. Never added a ton in the stolen bases. Did always help you in the batting average until the end of his Mets season, and then he just was brutal in 2021, was injured in 2022, so didn't play. Was honestly, let's just be real about it, not very good for the Giants last season, just right about league average, 240 batting average, 15 home runs. Like, he was fine. He is still young enough, age 31, that is not post prime in Major League Baseball. You could still kind of roughly be in the nebulousness of your prime at 31. The concern I would have would be he's never been a huge batting average guy. He had the 1 year in 2020 where he just kind of sun-runned over 230 plate appearances, but that's not really his thing. The Giants are not going to be this juggernaut offense. You're not getting 100 RBIs. You're not getting 100 runs. How many home runs are you going to hit playing all your home games there, especially as a lefty, right? It's actually even harder there to be a left-handed guy to try and hit 30 home runs. So, yeah, I think he's awesome. I'm not trying to trade him away, but I'd just be a little bit like, I don't know what the plan is here because he's not hitting 30 home runs for the Giants.
Right, probably so. And no one's hitting 30 home runs for the Giants unless it's Soler.
Exactly.
Nobody does hit 30 home runs for the Giants. That's what happens. All right, so Davis does not a big Merrill Kelly guy, before the year.
I'm really
Davis,
not.
but the guy keeps. Who has more innings thrown this season than this guy? That's part of fantasy at this point. It used to not be, and it was just a skill set. But the more innings you go, the more counting stats you pile up. Kelly's ERA is never going to be 2 at the end of the year, and he's probably not going to strike out a batter an inning, Davis. But in the end, he's not the Diamondbacks ace, but he is the 1B to Zach Gallen. Maybe even Jordan Montgomery when he comes back. Who knows? But great start for Kelly. And if he's healthy, it's 200 innings at the end of the season, 180 strikeouts, and a mid-3 ERA. Probably. Not your favorite skill set guy, Davis, but got to hand it to the guy. He's always pretty good.
No, it's true. And, this is a little bit of my bias leaking in because I prefer daily fantasy so much more to season-long fantasy, especially for baseball. And Merrill Kelly is just like anytime I load up a slate and Merrill Kelly is going to be 32% owned, I'm like, all right, boom, easy. Just never play chalk Merrill Kelly, right? But for season-long, the guy 30, 33, 27 starts over the last years. He got to 200 innings in 2022, got to 180 last year. Again, doesn't generate a ton of strikeouts, but on the flip side of that token, he doesn't kill you in whip either because he doesn't walk anyone. He's like a 1.1 whip guy. And the Diamondbacks are good. That's a new reality to have to deal with too. Is like this is not an innings eater on a bad team. This is not Jose Quintana, pitching for the Pittsburgh Pirates or whatever. It's a better skill set than that, and a guy who is gonna be in line for the win on a pretty good team most of his starts. You could back into 18 wins that way pretty easy.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, now not everybody with a great start to their week, but again, it is very early to make these sort of assessments, but we'll go through it. In particular, the pitchers we're going to talk about here, I don't have my concerns, but Luis Castillo, tough 2 starts. He did get through 2 starts of 5 innings apiece, I believe. His ERA around 7, 12 strikeouts, 3 walks. I don't have much to add here, Davis. Early season struggles don't bother me for guys like this.
Yeah, absolutely no concerns. In fact, the two starting pitchers that we have here to discuss, Castillo and Nola, I'm not even logging in to think about it. I just am like, sure, whatever. I have absolutely zero concerns that either of these guys are that I'm gonna have to drop them, that I'm gonna have to trade them. It just happens, especially and it's more likely to happen with these elite starting pitchers earlier in the season because they're just not all the way dialed in yet. They're still ramping up. I mean, we saw this a lot last year. Remember with the introduction of the pitch clock and the way that spring training came down last 2 years, really. We've seen this at the beginning of the year, just some anomalous performances from starting pitchers, good starting pitchers that just ended up being predictive of nothing.
Also, Aaron Nola, 5 walks, Davis, over his first 2 appearances, his ERA over 5. Weather. I mean, I'm not going to make excuses again for a guy like Nola, but at the end of the year where he's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll make excuses for him, which is like Aaron Nola just does this. Wheeler does it too. Nola and Wheeler are both just that tier below ultra elite starting pitchers because they do this every so often. Nola, it will be with the walks. Wheeler, it will be with the home runs, where just every so often they have a start where they're not quite with it. They can't quite find the strike zone. They actually both go to the same thing. They both go to the fastball high when they're just kind of having a tough time. And I mean, it can work for some guys. It can be a disaster for other guys. But yeah, you take your lumps. I mean, come on, if you are benching Aaron Nola, you probably have already lost, your fantasy baseball league because you just can't play that way.
All right, so now we get to the Mets. And Mets may be breaking through right now. I don't know, but it was a really tough first week for them. The Tigers, really took it to them, and then finally they broke through. I mean, it's been a miserable start for Francisco Lindor, but this would be the kind of situation, Davis, where it's like if some Lindor owner out there was like, maybe his skill set is fading, I want to grab a piece of this guy. I mean, even with the Mets, Davis, having that horrible year that they had last year, Lindor was great. I got no issue here at all. I'd be throwing out trade offers if anybody was worried here. This is the ultimate buy low guy.
You remember we already did this once with Francisco Lindor in 2021, 524 plate appearances, 230 batting average, just by the chin of his teeth, by the skin of his teeth, got to a league average OPS plus, got to 100 and OPS plus with only 20 home runs and 10 stolen bases. He is like basically doubled those numbers each of the last 2 seasons, gotten MVP votes each of the last 2 seasons for the Mets. We've already done this with Francisco Lindor, the Met, and it turned out, I mean, Craig, it's the thing I say all the time. Baseball is just hard. It's just a hard sport. And sometimes Jose Ramirez has had stretches like this. Like sometimes it just happens. You can't. Yeah. My panic meter on Lindor would be 0, absolutely 0 concern. Yeah.
Yeah. Same with me. All right. We'll take a quick break here on FST. Coming up, we preview the second hour of the show. It's time to take a look at the daily fantasy slate for Saturday. We'll be right back.
Great. NC State, the Cinderella story continues.
Creates a double team and then gets an assist. 3 assists already. Everything's going through the big man.
Maybe one of the most dominant runs now with double-digit wins and 2 straight NCAA tournaments we have seen in quite some time in the big dance.
Zach Edey does throw elbows. Zach Edey does duck in with his shoulder. Zach Edey does initiate a lot of contact.
Bama runs a style that can challenge them and upset them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Drew Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford father time to catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics with all of my might.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. and Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They're the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today. Davis and I will preview the daily fantasy slate coming up in hour 2. We've got Fantasy Reality. Gray Albright will also be with us. Of course, we have the SportsGrid 60. Should be a fun second hour, so stick along with us. Davis, this is ESPN's Sarah Lang's Paul Skenes yesterday. 3 innings pitched, 1 hit in the minors, 6 strikeouts, 100.7 miles an hour, 100.5, 100.4, 100.2, and 100. 44 pitches, 13 at over 100 miles an hour for Paul Skenes. I mean, this is like Strasburg levels, right? When he was coming up, like I think this is the next great guy in baseball.
Yeah, I that's actually the greatest comparison I think that you can make, which is that it is to me very it is very Strasburg-y in the sense of like, well, actually, you know, coming from that same organization, right? Which is we just want this guy to come up and immediately start striking out 10 guys per game, and you know, honestly, I just was saying some complimentary things about the Pirates earlier in the show. I'm like legitimately annoyed he is not pitching in the major leagues right now. Like what a draw it would have been for Paul Skenes. I guess Mitch Keller did probably deserve to be the opening day starter. He probably put in enough work. But imagine the draw of us having Skenes pitching on maybe not opening day, sure, maybe on the second day or whatever, or the you know, on the Saturday when it was you know, a good day for people to come to the ballpark or whatever. Like I mean I would have watched it, right? I'm not watching a ton of Pirates games. I'm gonna be real upfront with everyone, but I promise you, Skenes' debut, I'm logging into MLB TV and I'm gonna watch him pitch for sure.
I would say if you said to me before Memorial Day, I'd say yes. I would say before the NFL draft, Paul Skenes will be up. So that's how fast I think this is coming. All right, we'll preview the daily slate next.